Call the city council work session to order with roll call.
Mayor Van Gordon.
Here.
Councilor Weber. Here. Councilor Mo.
Here.
Councilor Rodley.
Here.
Blackwell. Here. Councilor Doyle. Here. And Councilor Pictionary.
Here, thank you. We have one item on the work session tonight, and that's Ann's Art funding, and that's with Nancy Newton.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. So this work session is in follow-up to Council's authorization on April 3rd, 2023 of $600,000 in ARPA funding for the purchase of a home in Springfield to house up to 6 women. The authorization was contingent upon the city manager's approval of an operations plan to be submitted by Ann's Hart. I hate referring to myself in the third person, but anyway, you did do this. After serious deliberations and significant staff time spent on the issue, my recommendation is to redirect the funding amount of $620,000 toward a different project or projects that align with the funding intent of long-term affordable housing. So you will note in your agenda packet, there is a memo from me to the mayor and council outlining the sequence of events that led to this conclusion. I'm going to share a brief synopsis of that memo for the record this evening. So from April to July of 2023, city staff exchanged draft documents with volunteers from Ann's Hart, providing feedback on the operations plan that they created. The first document received was a shelter proposal, which was modified to a draft operations plan by Ann's Hart volunteers. We then met in person with Ann's Hart volunteers in July to further explain the context and necessity of some items that were still missing from the operations plan, such as an outreach plan to the neighborhood and security for the residents and community. When we were having that in-person meeting, June Fothergill relayed to us that Ann's Hart was receiving operations funding from Lane County. This was a new funding source that was provided through the governor's executive order. And the intent of that executive order was to rapidly increase the state's shelter capacity, among other things. This new funding substantially changed the scope of the project from the transitioning housing model approved by council to an emergency low barrier shelter. And I've included in the packet this evening the funding requirements from Lane County for this money. There are many minimum standards required to be considered a low barrier shelter. One is that residents do not have to agree to be sober to participate in programs, activities, or classes. So my memo to the mayor and council identifies several deficiencies in the operations plan. First being that program participation with the Lane County funding is voluntary. That's the requirement. The Lane County funding requires the shelter welcome self-identified family and kinship groups that seek to shelter together. That's not addressed in the operations plan. That's something that Ann's Hart will have to work on with the county, but it's outside the scope of what I was told to look at. The operations plan needs further refinement about drug and alcohol use. There's also a section on noise complaints, but is not really addressed adequately. The remote security portion of the plan lacks detail, and I didn't go in depth into it, but I see some potential liability there as far as who the purveyor of that security might be and whether or not they are trained and certified and insured to do that function. The proposed budget is incomplete and it's not sustainable. In fact, the budget submitted was for less than 6 months of operations. The plan does not address the pet accommodation required of the Lane County funding. You know, I bring this forward to say, you know, I want to close with saying that the volunteers with Ann's Hart have good intent, and I suggest that they receive technical assistance to help them further refine their vision. They could, you know, still, you know, they could still probably have the funding from Lane County and work on that under a different model, but that's again outside of the scope of what you asked me to address tonight. So I'd be happy to take your questions.
Are there any questions?
How can anything with such good intentions that they worked on for so long, it is needed and accepted by everybody in the city, suddenly be defeated by bureaucracy? It's just, it shouldn't be.
Well, Councilor, I wouldn't classify this as bureaucracy. The full council.
Look at all this. These
Well,
documents.
the documents are to show the public the transparency in public funding. And when you allocate public funding.
I understand that.
You need
You
that.
don't have to justify it to me, but I'm just looking at the wishes that they've had so long, they work towards it. Suddenly it's not gonna happen.
I wouldn't characterize it in that way. I think with the funding in Lane County, that if they were creative, they could probably do that in another format. I don't think the Lane County funding requires them to have a home. Again, that's not what I delved into. But I think that, you know, Lane County, they do offer technical assistance as part of their funding. So that's something that they could pursue with Lane County.
Thank you.
Corey?
Thank you. And Nancy is correct. I had a conversation with Kate Budd about this, and the operations funding that's coming from the county could be used to put, if they were to have people in hotel rooms, or they wouldn't have to have a building to start the operations pieces. And I've had several conversations about this, because I know that we're all invested, and this was an opportunity for us to, like, let's do a thing that fits within the city's purview. And, you know, this is a big leap for a nonprofit that is barely a new nonprofit in terms of operations funding and needing to professionalize the services and not necessarily the services, but professionalize the operations pieces. Because what could happen with nonprofits that start too fast is that they're not able to sustain, because they haven't built up over time, and they haven't, you know, they might be able to get some funding from us to buy a home and some funding for some initial operations, but they're going to just sustain that. They're going to need to build donors, and they're going to need to reach out, and they're going to need to also provide services. And so as I was poring over the report that Nancy wrote, which I really appreciate all the work that Nancy has done on this, because we turned it over and said we trust her judgment, and if she's able to get to an operations plan, we're there. And all the work that she did not get to an operations plan that we feel comfortable with, or by we I mean me. And I think that this doesn't mean that we're not supportive of the mission, or doesn't mean that I'm not supportive of the mission. It just is like, this just isn't the right time for us to be putting all of that money into a place if they're not going to be able to sustain it, when we could move the money into a way that meets what we all had intended. And to maybe work with them some more and help establish the mission of that organization.
Thank you, Corey. Other questions? The one, I guess, clarifying question that I had is, when I read this, it sounded like the last meeting we had with them was in late June. Like you said, during the June 26, 2023 meeting.
Actually, it was, I was incorrect in that, as staff corrected me. It was actually on July 3rd.
Okay. And so at that point, they get sort of, I guess, feedback on the operations plan. Was there any revisions to the operating plan from July until today?
Yes, there were, but the operations plan that, well, from that first July meeting, yes. We received the final operations plan from June. I think it was around July 17th.
Okay.
And that what I included in the packet is the last document that we received.
Okay. Other questions? I think so. We've got to give her direction. So we needed to sort of, I need a head down that said people are comfortable with. Right, Joe.
Not questions, but I'm just going to comment that I've read it, and I too appreciate the tremendous amount of work that I tried to get to where we wanted to go, but couldn't because of the facts that you're faced with, and that's not easy, and I recognize that. So I appreciate your courage. So I concur with the outcome of your work. And I concur with what Corey says. They're not right. It's not the right timing for this organization to take a bite this big. I don't oppose you with your outcome, and I appreciate with your work.
Is the term bureaucratic, and that was wrong, but more technical. The legalese and this stuff is insurmountable for them.
I don't think it's insurmountable, Counselor Mo. I think that what we're looking at is a group of very well-intended people that start a nonprofit, but really need to get a little bit more expertise underfoot to understand, they have never operated a shelter. They don't have, people on their board to do that. If you look at the budget, I want you to hear me that I think that this is an important cause, and it's difficult to come to this conclusion, but I have to be a wise financial steward of the public's resources. And it would be irresponsible to start a program, purchase a home, and have it fail. If we started a program in our city, we want it to succeed. We want people to be able to point at that and go, look how great that's working. And I just didn't see that being feasible under this plan. And I encourage people to read the full packet, and I think it gives a greater understanding. It's not bureaucratic. It's simply trying to find a way to be successful.
Victoria.
So I just wanted to comment really quick because of Councilor Mo's comments about it being bureaucratic and what have you. And I was on the Community Development Advisory Committee back in 2017, 2018, when I want to say Pastor June came in and had this idea clear back then. And so to say that it's just something that fell apart in this last 6 months is not really being accurate. This is something that has been talked about and been in the works, meaning you knew what was coming down the pike and what you were going to need, and you've had opportunities to do that. And I don't think that the requirements that we were putting in this were difficult, and they spoke to our community and what they want. And then when it came back in and it's different than what we agreed to, then we have to question that. We have to look at that. But to say that it's bureaucratic and that's what caused this not coming together isn't being honest in the situation. So,
Corey.
Thanks. And, I can understand the frustration, and, coming from a world of nonprofit, I also understand that sometimes it takes a while to build up the capacity for a new nonprofit, and having things like a business plan and a budget and things are important I think of nonprofits as being like small businesses and being very entrepreneurial. So this doesn't necessarily feel bureaucratic. It just feels like we still have to have these things in place. And I'm remembering when we agreed to it, we were like, well, yes, one of our goals, and we want to support women and in Springfield who are unhoused or homeless. And if you read through the packet, some of the low, and I think that there's a time and a place for low barrier shelters, absolutely. And in a house in a neighborhood is probably not, in Springfield is probably not the time and the place for a low barrier shelter. So that's part of it too. It's like, if we could work into some other situation that was gonna fit better, I think that would also be helpful. And just to work along to build up the plan so that it's sustainable. I don't feel like I want to abandon Anne's Heart or abandon the folks who want to do this. I think what we had agreed to do in terms of helping them purchase a house doesn't necessarily fit with where the operations or where they want to go with the services they want to provide, and that's fine.
I think that's a really good observation, is that it's been an evolving conversation over the last couple of years. And that the reality is, I don't think that when I read the operating plan that it was necessarily ready for prime time or the right location. And I think the piece to this is this money's on a time frame, otherwise it's got to go back to the state, right? So if we had more time with the money, I would be more lenient to sort of leave it out there for further sort of, I guess, development, for lack of a better word. I think the packet does a very nice job of sort of lining out where it is. And the community group, did a lot of work here. I would encourage them to keep ideating and working on it and trying to address some of those gaps, but this isn't the right isn't the right time to hold this money out based on the fact it's gotta be done and I think spent in maybe February.
Yeah, it depends on which, there's two pockets of funding that's pertaining to Ann's part. The one that is through the city needs to be expended by June of 2024. But in reality, it really needs to be done probably in May because we are responsible for submitting a report to the state to demonstrate how that funding has been spent and to show that it was spent according to the requirements. The county's funding is a different matter, and I didn't look into that deeply. But I do think Councilor Rodley makes an excellent point that they could still accomplish a lot of the intent of what they're trying to do, but be more creative in the model.
Well, so for the interim, I would like to look at and hear about other potential recipients of that money, and so we can get that ball rolling or keep it going,
Yes.
so we don't lose traction on it.
Absolutely. We'll bring that back.
Right? Michelle?
I don't have any questions. I think this was laid out very, very well and gave us, a really good basis for understanding what was happening, where we were, where we are. But I do want to thank Councilor Rodley for her comments because they are really, I think, really indicative and very thoughtful of where we are as a council. And I just want to thank her for those words.
Absolutely.
So, you've got enough direction and then you will come back to us with, some options on where this funding can be redeployed to. And but it's gotta be in the housing, low-income housing world.
Correct.
Okay. But, the other comments before? All right, then I think we are done until 7 o'clock. We are adjourned. We will see you here at 7 o'clock. I'm gonna call the Springfield City Council regular meeting to order with roll call.
Mayor Van Gordon,
Here.
Counselor Weber.
Here.
Counselor Mo. Here. Counselor Bodley.
Here,
Counselor Blackwell.
Here.
Counselor Doyle.
Here.
And Counselor Pictionary.
Here, thank you. Please join me in the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As we begin our meeting tonight, there are two designated times for public testimony this evening, under public hearings and business from the audience. If you are attending in person, please complete the request to speak card located at the entrance of the council chambers and give them to the city recorder. If you are joining us online with a tablet, smartphone, or computer and wish to speak either of those times, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom. The order of public testimony is as follows. Anyone in person in the city council chambers, and then anybody who has raised their virtual hand. And Neil, how many people do we have joining us this evening?
7 attendees online, approximately 55 council chambers.
All right. First item, please.
First item is Springfield Upbeat. Item number 1, Mayor's Recognition, Plans to get Examiner of the Year Award, and Jeff Pascal is here for this item.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. I'd like to introduce a remarkable individual whose dedication and achievements deserve our recognition.
Jeff, why don't we have her come?
Yeah, you can come up here. You can come sit by me if you don't want. I know you were trying to hide. Michelle Lindbarger is a key member of the Community Development Division within Development Public Works. She's a commercial plans examiner. She has been honored with an Oregon Building Officials Association Plans Examiner of the Year Award. Michelle's receipt of this award is a testament to her outstanding commitment to the community and her unwavering pursuit of excellence. The OBOA selected her for this honor based on numerous nominations submitted by professionals and customers who have witnessed her exceptional service. Michelle has consistently delivered the highest level of customer service to our local community, ensuring that our city's development adheres to the highest standards of safety and quality. Michelle's impacts also extend beyond our city's borders. She is an active voting member of the International Code Council and serves as the Vice President of the Oregon Permit Technicians Association. This year, OPTA has been recognized nationally by the ICC as Chapter of the Year, and Michelle played a crucial role in earning this prestigious accolade. Her work with these organizations not only benefits Springfield, but also contributes to the broader community by fostering education, networking, and upholding safety standards. Michelle's dedication to her professional work outside of Springfield has never detracted from her responsibilities here. Instead, enhances her performance. In the past year alone, she has performed plan reviews for significant projects, including a roughly 31,000 square foot temple, 53,000 square foot church, and over 500 new apartment units, and more than 215 other commercial and structural mechanical permits. Michelle's contributions to the development industry are not only impressive, but also deeply impactful. She serves as an inspiration to her peers, elevating the standards of the profession and ensuring the safety and well-being of our communities throughout Oregon and beyond.
Well, that is a lot of great news. Who did you bring with you this evening?
I brought my two children, Jackie and Sydney, and my dad, Leo.
Well, last week when it got announced, I'll tell you a quick story, and then during the week I talked to a lot of the other counselors. We just chat and exchange texts, and more than one of them said, "Hey, did you see this great thing that happened?" And people were very, very excited. We all have seen your contributions over the last, over your career, but to, get a statewide award is pretty impressive, and we're all really proud of you.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And I'm grateful to be a part of such a dynamic and professional team of really qualified individuals within the DPW department. And I know the last couple of years have been kind of unprecedented as far as like scope of work being brought to Springfield. And the last 2 years are new in the commercial realm for me. I started off in residential, so I hit the ground running coming to Springfield with a huge learning curve, but everybody's been very supportive, and I'm really grateful to be here and establishing deep roots within the Springfield community.
Great. Well, before you go, and I don't know if anybody else wants to jump in, I did bring you a distinctively Springfield mug. Uh-oh, she's gonna take a picture.
Oh, gosh.
You have to stand up.
City recorder and photographer.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us this evening.
Yes. I appreciate it.
Right now, on to the rest of the business of the agenda. Next item, please.
The next item is the consent.
I move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Can you call the vote, please?
Yes, Counselor Weber,
Yes.
Counselor Mo.
Yes.
Counselor Rodley,
Yes.
Blackwell,
Yes.
Counselor Doyle,
Yes.
Counselor Visionary.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion passes, 6 yeses, 0 nos. Next item, please.
Next item is public hearings. You have 2 public hearings this evening. Public hearing number 1 is annexation of territory to the city of Springfield. Annex 0.22 acres of residential property located at 610 Rainier Avenue, map 17-03-33-14, tax lot 0908, and concurrently annex a segment of Rainier Avenue, including an adjoining pedestrian pathway. Again, this is ordinance number 2, an ordinance annexing certain territory, 610 Rainier Avenue, and approximately a 530-foot long segment of Rainier Street, an adjoining pedestrian pathway to the city of Springfield and Willamette Park and Recreation District, withdrawing the same territory from the Rainbow Water District, adopting a severability clause, and providing an effective date. Tom Severs is here for the staff report.
Good evening, Mayor and City Councilors. I'm Tom Severs, Senior Planner with the current planning section. Tonight, the council is requested to consider an ordinance to annex an approximately 0.22 acre property addressed as 610 Rainier Avenue in Western Springfield, along with a segment of public right-of-way and a pedestrian pathway. The proposed annexation area is highlighted in yellow, and the subject site is located at the southern end of Rayner Avenue. The applicants are the property owners and have requested annexation to receive city services and to decommission an aging septic system. There is already a sewer lateral in place to serve the site. Staff is also requesting to include an unannexed segment of Rayner Avenue and a pedestrian pathway adjoining the site on its eastern boundary. Annexation of the street segment will not constitute a jurisdictional transfer and will remain the responsibility of the county. The site is zoned R1, low-density residential, with the urbanizable fringe UF10 overlay. As you can see, it is contiguous to the city limits immediately to the west and south. If annexation is approved, no other zoning changes are requested except for the removal of the UF10 overlay. With annexation, the subject property will be removed from special districts such as the UF10 overlay depicted here, and service areas such as the Rainbow Water District. No other zoning changes will occur with this application. There are 4 criteria for annexations in the Springfield Development Code. Criterion A, within UGB and contiguous to city limits. As previously stated, the subject property is contiguous to city limits along its western and southern boundary. The subject territory is within the city's urban growth boundary and is currently covered by the urbanizable fringe overlay. Criterion B, consistent with policies of the Metro Plan. Policies 27, 29, 33, 34, and 35 of the 2030 Comprehensive Plan's urbanization element are met through this application, as the annexed land will be fully within Springfield urban service area. Criterion C, within boundary for minimum level of key urban facilities. Policies 29, 31, and 32 of the 2030 Comprehensive Plan's urbanization element are met through this application as well. If annexation is approved, the subject territory can easily obtain key facilities and services from the Rayner Avenue right-of-way. Again, these facilities and services will include sanitary sewer connection, sub-water and electric service, fire protection services from the Eugene Springfield Fire Department, police services from Springfield Police, and the Willamette Lane Recreation District. Criterion D, annexation agreement. An annexation agreement has already been signed by the applicants. The agreement covers obligations for the applicants and for the city, including any financial responsibilities. The agreement includes details on future connection to key urban facilities and services and withdrawal from special service districts. If the annexation is approved by City Council at the second reading on October 2nd, then the agreement will be ready for execution by the city manager, and the agreement would then be recorded with Lane County. Because all applicable annexation criteria have been met and the annexation will help facilitate bringing this property and abutting right-of-way into city limits, city staff recommends that this application be considered for approval by council. Thank you, and I'm here if you have any questions.
So, I may have missed it, but you mentioned something about the sidewalk. I had a couple clarification questions, if I could, please.
Yes.
So is that pre-existing sidewalk surfaced?
No, it's currently a strip of trees. The right-of-way has already been dedicated at some point in the past, but it is available as a pathway if we ever want to put one there.
So it's a right of way, but it's not city property, but it's a city right of way.
Correct.
So if a sidewalk was put in there, how well would that service that neighborhood? What would prompt people to use that sidewalk? What would be the benefit?
So you can see right below the site, there is a sliver there that is an existing concrete surface. So that is technically operable as a pathway right now. This would serve as a connection to that other side of the street. Rayner currently, dead ends at that cul-de-sac, but having that connection there would facilitate pedestrian pathway to go south towards the river in that area, because currently there's like the pipe over there that people walk across and things like that. So this would help facilitate on-street and safe pedestrian traffic.
Well, and this is just me putting it out there. I think that we should seriously look at, I'm all about access to resources, and if that sidewalk was present, it seems to me that all those property owners and kids and whatnot, if that sidewalk was there, would now have access towards the river much easier than having to go clear around their neighborhood.
Yes, sir.
So the owners that are annexing this, they're very aware that that property may end up as a thoroughfare for pedestrians.
Yes, correct. I have talked to them about that, and when I posted the site, I was able to speak with them on site and point out that this line of trees here is actually a pedestrian pathway that is dedicated but not in use.
So is anybody looking at making a pedestrian pathway?
Not that I'm aware of.
Suggest that? I mean, or at least check with the neighborhood, because open up neighborhoods to other areas is a great thing, but then again, you got property owners on either side. And most of those sidewalks typically would have a fence on either side to help give them privacy with. I'm speaking for myself. It meets the majority of the council as far as looking at that, but I would like the council to consider the staff looking at that as giving access to that neighborhood going south into the river area.
Victoria?
I think that we need to be. The neighbors in that neighborhood would need to chime in on that, because oftentimes we find that people don't want those paths because of certain elements that they feel like might access their neighborhood.
Right,
So I'm just,
to look at it, I would first start with how the neighborhood would look at it, but I think that to not look at it would be potentially to their detriment, and that they would want to have that.
Okay. Any other questions before I hold the public hearing? All right, then I am going to open the public hearing. I don't have any cards for this item. Does anybody wish to speak? Okay. Is there anybody online, Neil?
Mayor, we have no hands for this item.
Perfect. Then I'm gonna close the public hearing.
Can I speak? I'm so sorry. I'm new and I live on the other side of the property. And I'm just wondering, I am concerned about.
So why don't you fill out a card and let's collect your information.
Sorry.
You can fill it out afterwards, Pam.
Look for the record, and then I'll have you tonight.
All right, sorry.
You're
I'm
okay.
Sorry.
So could you state your name and address or location? for the
Yes,
record?
Yvonne Jacobs. My address is 529 Walnut Place. And I'm literally on the other side of the annex. I'm on the back side of their property. They're kind of kitty corner to me. And the pathway, if you will, is currently just a concrete strip along the side of my house that dead ends into a fence. And I had no idea the tree, I had no idea it even went through, because you can't tell that there's any path on the other side of the fence. So I wanted to find out, first of all, if they do have access to the city sewer and such, would that affect my area behind? Or is that just restricted to Rainier area?
You're gonna want to finish your testimony and then we'll respond.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
And then if the pathway were to go through, there is no fence there right now. So I would have a huge cost in putting a fence down the entire length of this concrete path that the city owns. Those are the items.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there any? I don't see anybody else online that wants to testify. All right, so I'm gonna close the public hearing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Tom, could you get with her and help work through her concerns? Absolutely. All right.
Mayor, so I just wanted to be clear, do we, the direction we have moving forward? We have direction to look at that path from the council. I just want to make sure we step the right direction.
So I think the question that I've got, like, I think there's some interest in asking that question, right, with the context of the neighbors, associated to it. My question from a staff perspective would be, would it make more sense to sort of separate this from the annexation?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm okay with this moving forward, but I think secondary. Follow up, that's all. I have no problem with this.
So I think we're good. Well, I think we're good on that.
Sorry.
Thank you. Thanks, Tom. Next item, please.
Next item, your second public hearing is public hearing number 2, Airborne Holdings LLC liquor license application. Christina Kraz is here for this item.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Christina Kraz, Assistant City Attorney. And I am here tonight regarding a application to the City Council for a recommendation from you to the Oregon Liquor and Cannabis Commission regarding 535 Main Street, doing business as the Spot that has been submitted by Airborne Holdings. Due to a history in this calendar year of excessive police reports and disturbances at this premises, the recommendation is that if you do not recommend denial of the application, that you recommend requirements that OLCC would place on the application. And those are outlined in the memorandum from City Attorney's Office. Most of those conditions are security related requirements that have been imposed on a series of temporary liquor licenses that the establishment is obtained on a per event basis from May to present. And those have been and experienced successful at preventing many of the issues that were occurring earlier in the spring. So we recommend that those continue, at least in this initial liquor license. And then there are some additional conditions that are intended to prevent other issues that are of concern from occurring. One is that there is apparently an apartment or residential type space associated with the premises that there are allegations that has been used for after hours parties or other events that are not appropriate to be combined with a liquor license. And then that there is no land use approval for residential uses or an Airbnb or short-term rental at that property. So it would need to go through a land use and building review to ensure that it could be used safely and not as a secondary space to a bar or event venue. The other concern is the fire code and maximum occupancy. There was a disturbing event earlier in the spring prior to the temporary liquor licenses where the fire marshal's office was initially denied access into the premises, and they were able to voluntarily get access in, but there are significant concerns about the occupancy. Those issues have been addressed for the last several months, but to prevent reoccurrence of that from happening, we recommend that that be an explicit condition on their license. There are already requirements that they allow law enforcement in to check for liquor license violations. So this would just match fire marshal's office having the same authority to check for occupancy or fire code violations. And if there aren't any questions, I can answer them now, or I can do so. This is a public hearing to allow the occupants to provide testimony. They did provide written correspondence to you that was emailed on Friday. If you haven't had a chance to review that, I could send that again.
Any questions before the public hearing? Okay. Then I'm going to open the public hearing. I don't have any cards for this item. Neil,
The owner.
My name is Michael Orlicky. I'm the owner and CEO of the Spot. Definitely been a bit of a lot of information that was more concerning my previous partner who had to spend nearly a month and a half evicting. I was the investor in it. He was supposed to be running it. He did a miserable job doing it. And as soon as I could start the eviction procedures with the previous tenant normal, I began those procedures at cost $2,000. And at the end, the lawyer just said, "Do you realize you just paid me to evict you?" And I said, "No, that was me and my former partner. I'm going to be signing a new lease by myself." And since then, we have been doing great. We've been following all the rules, TSLs. I am not just, a bar owner. I'm also a disabled veteran. I was disabled from Desert Storm. I've got tons of awards. I was one of the first UAV pilots in the United States military, flying the Predator drone before anybody even knew it existed. I was a military intelligence analyst, had above top secret security clearance. A lot of this stuff has been maddening to me because I didn't have as much control as I wanted to have over it. But once I got control and took over it myself, things have been going really well. That's the hard part about these situations. I wanted to be an investor and not do it. I actually make movies for a living, and I have documentary films that have awards that are on Amazon, and I just won 6 of 8 film festivals for my last one. And I also am a licensed cannabis grower under OLCC. My farm won awards for that as well, our first year out. So, you know, my business acumen is unchallenged at this point in my history. It's just that this became whatever had happened there before became put onto my name, and I wanted to make sure I could come and clarify that there's a new manager in town, and I'm taking it over, and I have taken since we took over right after the first incident that occurred that we had to address, and then that was from the previous tenant, and once we took it over and started doing the TSLs, there's been no problems. We've been working hard with the OLCC and with Kara over there. She came out of there on the block party with a giant smile on her face and said she was really happy with the progress that we've made and how well we've been handling everything. I'm sure they have attempted to send in undercover, and I'm sure it's received a different result than when Mark was in charge back in January through March. But otherwise, I just wanted to make sure you guys know that there is, you know, a different situation going on over there. We've been having lots of all ages shows. The all ages shows have been a hit. Even pulling into the Starbucks one day, the guy was like, "Hey, I saw you at the club the other night. We're so happy my son has a place to go." A lot of the parents that come say the same thing, that they're really happy that a lot of the all ages clubs closed down. But we also have plenty of 21 and over club events, and we have concerts, and we have pool league, women's pool league just signed up. They're going to be coming in. We got True Value Hardware has booked their holiday party. We have the Navy Reserve was trying to finish their holiday party booking. We've got this A3 high school down the street booked their prom, and we're going to be doing their events and their performances. We're also providing food for the kids that are going to be coming out of school during the day. We're going to be keeping our kitchen open to allow them to come in and play games at our video arcade there, use our Wi-Fi and eat food that we are going to price at a price point that's better than anything else on the street, so they have somewhere to eat. So we're trying to be good stewards of the neighborhood and bring a place that had a bad reputation back to life. And I think we're doing a really good job of it. If you haven't seen it yet, please feel free to come by and see it and see what we're doing over there. We've got lots of events going on over the next 60, 70 days. So.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. My name is Brendan Williams. My name's on the application as well. And so I know there were some concerns that were brought up about some stuff in my past, but that was from 2009, going through a divorce with my daughter's mother. I did get a DUI conviction, and I went through and served went through the classes, and have done everything to correct from that behavior and move forward in life. And so I just wanted to make sure y'all well aware, I have been working with the OLCC exclusively. I've been the one handling all the TSL paperwork and working directly with Kira from the OLCC. It has been frustrating because I was brought in after all that, the situation that was happening. And that was technically another entity called the 535, in no way affiliated with the spot. Those are two separate, completely separate businesses and organizations. So it's unfortunate that we've had to be put in that same category and have to deal with all their messes, but I understand the reasoning behind it, so we have jumped through all the hoops. The security requirements that the city has requested, although they have been in an effort to correct what happened at one incident, still haven't directly identified what happened in that incident, which was there was a gun that went off in the back alley outside of our establishment, and it had nothing to do with when no one had come through our building and gone back out there. That back alley is still accessible by all parties, and now with the Simpsons murals back there, we have people coming through there all day, every day. We keep that back door closed. It has to be open as like an access way if people were to go through, so it has the safety bars inside, but it's locked from the outside. So we would still love to find a way to appropriately monitor that alleyway, because the 6 security guard requirement does impose about a $2,000 per event cost on our business, which is making it very hard to be successful in this space as a new organization. It's also not in alignment with any other venue or business that you look at in the community. in terms of how many security personnel are required based on the number of attendees present. We do have a DPSST executive, security executive, who is in control of our security team and monitors all that, and they have worked at a number of different venues around Eugene and Springfield. They've never seen this level of, security guard per attendee requirement placed on them before. But we've done it, and we'll, continue to do it if that's what it means being in this space, but we feel like we can find a better medium. Also, there's been a request for two parking monitors, but we don't actually have a parking lot. And I've requested, clarification on what are we supposed to be monitoring exactly? Are we monitoring the city parking spaces out in front of our building on the street parking? Are we monitoring the city parking lot across the street from us, which is free parking? How far out are we supposed to be monitoring? And exactly what are we supposed to be monitoring? And I was never able to get an answer to that from the city of Springfield or from the police who are signing off on those TSLs. So that is still a question we have that we'd like to have answered if it is going to be a requirement for us.
Plus the gun that went off actually.
Hang on a second.
Yeah.
Sorry. Just one set of testimony at a time.
Yes,
So if you're no, it looks like your time's up. So thank you guys. If you can excuse me, I can go back to the.
Okay, do we need to fill out a card at all, or you, please? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. I don't have any other cards. Do you have anybody raising their hand online? All right. And I'm going to close the public hearing and then open it for council discussion. And Christina, remind us, we have to make a decision tonight.
You do not have to make a decision tonight. I recommend you make a decision tonight because the deadline, the regulations allow a maximum of 45-day extension from the original deadline. The original deadline occurred while you were on recess. The reference to prior criminal histories was related not actually to the recommendation before you tonight, but to the reasons given to OLCC to get that 45-day extension. That extension ends tonight. I have spoken with the OLCC officials who are reviewing this license. They will accept information from the council if it comes in at any point before their final decision is made, but they can't make a promise as to when their final decision would be made. So if you do not make a recommendation tonight, then there's a chance that the council would make no recommendation before the license decision was made. If the council makes no recommendation, OLCC treats that as a favorable recommendation.
Okay. Victoria?
I'm right off the bat, huh? So I just want to clarify the timing on this. So it's, it looks like the incidents that we've been talking about were prior to May. Is that correct? And is that correlate with the eviction of the previous owner, the owner that was on site and supposed to be taking care of stuff?
So the police reports that were of major significant concern occurred over a couple of weekends in March and one weekend in April. There was from my search of the court records, there were no eviction proceedings. My understanding based on my review of police reports is that there was an individual who was involved in a business with Mr. Orlicki. And then that individual since May has ceased to be involved in the business, but Mr. Orlicki was involved during these incidents that happened in March and April. And I cannot speak to, I think you heard the testimony from Mr. Orlicki, but I can't speak to that. I can speak to what's in the police reports, which is that he was present at the location on at least some of these instances.
Okay, so I see that as a plus, that someone saw the problem, took care of the problem. And I also am not a huge fan of bringing up people's past from 14 years ago. I think people have a right to get on with their lives and that shouldn't be thrown in their face. So I don't want to use that as in my opinion, that's not part of what we're doing in the decision. So I don't know what type of stipulations you want to put on it, but I don't have a problem with us trying to extend some sort of agreement with these folks that are really trying to get this place together and take care of the problems that happened.
So,
Christina, can we do well, I'll just say where I'm at is that I like the restrictions so that we prevent something that may or may not happen, but not into perpetuity. So give them a chance to operate under these restrictions for a period of time to see how the ball bounces, so to speak. So then would it be, because I think, I'm okay with these restrictions. I don't have a problem with them at all. but I do want to know that, would it be a recommendation to approve with those listed restrictions, or would it be, or if they don't want to go with those restrictions that they've agreed upon already, then I would recommend denial.
So the option in front of the council is, one option in front of the council is to recommend that OLCC grant a conditional license. And then OLCC would have the opportunity to evaluate whether those conditions, if they would independently evaluate the conditions and determine if they agree with them. The city council's recommendation is certainly a significant factor. And then any conditions that OLCC does place on the license can be revisited upon renewal, on the renewal period. And that, and I had that up at one point, I believe it's a year. Yes, that's Nancy may probably confirm that. Yeah, thanks. And Nancy Jenkins is here from business licensing as well. This is a program that her department runs very well most of the time, and this is a unique situation, and that's why I'm presenting it.
So we could recommend, as long as they agree to those current restrictions or requirements for the period of the 1 year is sort of a probationary 1 year probation type thing. If we don't have police incidences that raises concern, then we can easily go with recommended without restriction.
Yes, the council could recommend renewal of that license as an unrestricted license when it comes back to you for renewal. And that's a process the council goes through each year.
They don't want the restrictions the way they are. I think they're reasonable because based on the track record, I would be remiss to think that if something was to come up and we had the opportunity to stop and not allow that to happen, then I think that would be a good thing. So that's where I'm at.
Corey?
Thank you. I agree with Counselor Pictionary. I think these are reasonable and you all have done your due diligence and would like to know that there's an off ramp, which gives them an opportunity to, continue on the road that they're going and know that if that's what we can do, if we can recommend to the, whatever it is now, OLCC, whatever, that we want to consider the conditions for a year, and then when it re-ups, if things are going well, those could slip off. I did want to circle back about the parking one though. I mean, I can understand an outside security person, but also if there's no parking lot, I'm just a little bit curious about that.
Does anybody have any more about the
Question
parking
about
question?
that
Okay,
specifically.
why don't you ask your parking question and we'll see.
Well, it's not just the parking, it's I'm trying to understand this, security, 6 security guards for 75, that seems to me, I mean, I get that we want security, but that seems pretty excessive, in my opinion. That almost seems like it would be a detractor but anyway, that seems like a little bit much, six to security guards and expensive.
That was kind of my question or comment as well. I felt also after your comment too, that was a little bit excessive. And if that doesn't fall in line with kind of the norm that's out there and just cost wise to run a business, I felt like that may be a little bit excessive to look at that particular one on, but agree with the rest.
Joe?
And so I do know too that their license goes to the end of June, so it's not a full year even. It's going to be about 10 months until when it comes up again. And I'm not stuck in the mud in regards to 6 officers. I think it could be probably revisited and reduced by a couple, but definitely not less than 4 for sure. Yeah.
I believe that the capacity under the current, with the current fire marshal is about 200 people. So there could be significantly more than 75 people in that venue at one time.
Michelle?
So originally, when I read through this and I saw all of the issues that were prior to, coming today to talk about this and then seeing a letter from the owner and kind of hearing where they have been, where they are and the direction that they're working hard. It sounds like working hard. I mean, it's all kind of, we have to trust what's being told to us. But I feel like we definitely need to put some protocols in place just to have that, give us time to build that trust, right? But I don't know, I kind of agree that some of this feels a little bit stringent and maybe we could find a compromise.
So Christina, you may have to help us here, because do we just need, do you need a number that we feel comfortable with? Or is there sort of time to kind of go back and revise that with staff and kind of give you guys a contingent approval, if you will?
I want to turn it over to Chief Shearer, who's here, and see if he has any recommendations on a number that would be appropriate.
Come on up, Chief.
These recommendations came from Springfield Police, and so I'm not the expert in what number of personnel present is recommended.
So, I mean, I'd have to defer to the team that worked through these specific recommendations, but I want to be extremely reasonable because we know what happened there early in the year. We wanted to have things in place to prevent something similar from that happening. I mean, gunfire is unacceptable in downtown Springfield. Clearly, there's been a lot of effort since that occurred. And we are totally open to having reasonable security requirements and even drawing those back depending on the circumstances. And we are more than open to discussing that. I hesitate to put a number on it right now. It's just the kind of thing where they have, it's all or nothing right now. Or
Yeah, unfortunately, if you want to get a recommendation to OLCC, but you could have a recommendation that OLCC require a appropriate amount of security. And then it would be on the OLCC licensor to determine what's appropriate from their perspective for similar venues and under similar conditions.
And we'd be happy to make recommendations to OLCC.
Yes.
Dependent on the circumstances.
And then staff could submit those recommendations directly to OLCC, but the council can make its decision tonight, and this wouldn't have to come back to you.
I'm okay with that. I think that if we put the owners on Kira, right, to where she can be looking at that and watching and monitoring, because I think it is kind of under 75 people with 2 officers, I think it's completely legit. From 75, you have 76, 78, 80 people there, and all of a sudden it bumps to 6. That's kind of a hard line to follow, but I think that working with that crowd, it should go up as those population goes up. If you have 150, which is double the 75, then I think, okay, well, 4 officers are probably pretty good. You add 75, it brings up to 225. 6 officers would be appropriate for there too. So I think stair stepped a little bit closer. So you're increasing it by 2 officers every 75 folks. That seems reasonable. But again, I also appreciate Chief indicating and say, hey, well, and Christina indicating, well, we could put it back on OLCC's shoulders, say, hey, you give them the requirements in regards to that, but I'm not sure if they have that ability to draw an agreement with them on that. We can.
OLCC can impose conditions on their license. The city cannot impose conditions on license except under temporary sales licenses. OLCC takes those conditions and imposes them on the temporary licenses. So the city would just be recommending what you believe that OLCC should do. OLCC will give that a lot of weight, but may change your conditions anyway. So you could recommend there be no event security and OLCC could say it should be 6, or you could recommend it should be 6 and OLCC could say it should be 2. So
I know they listen to us. They really do listen to us. And so I think I don't want to put the wrong message to them. We don't want to shut them down, but I think if we recommend two security folks for every 75 people showing up, I think it's very reasonable. And of course, you have 225 people showing up, they're gonna be buying a lot of product, so I'm not too concerned about making the bottom line there, but I think that the council agrees, I would recommend just the 2 for every 75 and let OLCC, have them abide by these agreements and let OLCC govern.
Victoria?
I would defer to the chief and say, how do you feel about that? Because you're the ones that have to show up when things go sideways.
It's gonna be dependent on the event. I mean, there's some events that we might want 10 security guards, and there's some that we might want none. And so we need to have the flexibility, and rather than putting a hard fast, you will always have this no matter what the event is, seems a little onerous for the business owners. So I would be in favor of an approach that's a little more a case by case basis with OLCC. We can make recommendations, what we think based on the event, what is demanded there.
I think historically, if knowing with OLCC folks that they're gonna say you have to have security, that's it, but no number. And that could be a problem.
So I can phrase this recommendation instead of what was in there as events expecting over 75 attendees require a minimum 6 security guards and 2 parking control traffic monitors present during the event. And metal detectors must be used to screen attendees prior to entry. I could phrase that as events expecting over 75 attendees require additional licensed event security to be determined upon consultation between OLCC and the Springfield Police Department. And then want some clarification on the metal detector component of that. That's the one piece of that same event over 75 that I am unsure of the council's direction, if that's.
I would be in favor of leaving the metal detector piece into it, right? Like that seems reasonable at this point. I know we're kind of working through the security ratio there.
The parking thing?
No, the metal
No,
detector.
but that was included in what she just said.
Right.
Is leaving in that parking control traffic monitor
Well-
thing, and that doesn't.
Sorry, I would be the parking, instead of a minimum of 6 security guards and 2 parking control traffic monitors present during the event, it would state additional licensed event security to be determined upon consultation between OLCC and the Springfield Police Department. So the traffic or parking enforcement could be part of the police department's recommendation for an event, but wouldn't be necessary in other cases. But the separate sentence in that same bullet point is about the metal detectors. So I'm hearing that there's no concern with that.
You know, like the metal detector there.
Okay, Steve?
I support this on the probationary period. Sounds like a good way to get started and get some confidence in you guys. And another thing about downtown, there's sort of a dark area in there. I'd really like to see some life in there. And this will help generate
Hang
that.
on, we're not,
But can't conversation.
no, just keep going, Steve. You're fine.
Okay.
You are fine.
I don't know what I'm saying.
Okay, so I guess here's my take on it. And I know we kind of went through the details and we're trying to get through a good place. I was really concerned with what I read in this letter. And frankly, I was waiting for you guys to when you guys sat down to hear 2 things from you. Flawless execution, right, which is sort of required to move past this, right? And I hear a strong desire to move past this. And frankly, a little bit more ownership in the problems that we've had in there, right? Like it's your problem. And I was listening for, hey, we screwed it up, we gotta fix it. And I would just strongly encourage you guys, I know that there's been a lot of changes out there, to really think about the fact, the explanation between, hey, look, we threw out the other guy, everything's fine now. Because when I read the report, everybody was there, right? And the thing I keep coming down to is what we worked so hard in this community to make downtown a great place. And the behavior that I saw when I read that was, I had the fear of that we were actually going to go back to the place that we didn't want to be. And while we're working and trying to be reasonable here, I wanted to at least say that specifically. We're not going back to the way Springfield downtown used to be. And I need you guys to really work with the PD to make sure you clean up and address these issues.
So where do we land?
I have I haven't heard anything other than that one, any changes to the staff recommendation other than that one bullet point. So I think unless there's anything else, what I'm needing from you is a motion to adopt that as your recommendation at OLCC, and then I will give that to them tonight.
And I still would like to recommend 2 officers per 75 people.
Yes, I haven't changed. Sorry, let me clarify. The things that will continue under security related conditions are an ID monitor present for all events serving alcohol. That may just be required under OLCC's provisions. Bag and purse security check done prior to entry. Events expecting 25 to 75 attendees require a minimum of 2 security guards present during the event. If they had less than 25 in attendance, there has not been a requirement for security under the temporary sales licenses. So,
Well, just for clarification too, the ID checker has to be licensed as well. For my DPSST.
the PSST license,
Yes.
licenses.
So there's already gonna be one present just doing ID checks.
Okay. And then, yes, there is a requirement, any employees used to provide security services, and then I can add in there and ID checks. Should be certified by DPSST.
That's law anyway.
And then, Instead of events expecting over 75 attendees require a minimum of 6 security guards and 2 parking control traffic monitors during the event, it would be events expecting over 75 attendees require additional licensed event security to be determined upon consultation between OLCC and the Springfield Police Department. And then keeping metal detectors must be used to screen attendees prior to entry. And then I have no change to the requirement for that the premises comply with all fire code requirements and occupancy limits, and that the license be restricted to require at any time the business is open to the public or alcohol is being served, that the premises allow entry of fire marshals office and their deputies and law enforcement for occupancy purposes. And then restrictions on the upstairs apartment use without land use approval. And then the 2 that we hadn't touched on specifically that I'm not hearing concerns about, but I want to confirm. I don't believe that there are any pending OLCC violations from the temporary sales licenses, but I didn't know that at the time that the packet was due. There could still be, I mean, I think there will be temporary sales events happening between now and when OLCC makes its decision. So I would recommend that condition stay, but if there are any pending OLCC violations, that the license that an OLCC violation on another license, like a temporary sales one, be a considered violation of this license, and that they have do not have any major OLCC violations in the next year.
So could you go back and read the ratio again?
Yeah. If we can just put in two security per 75 as opposed to a reasonable number.
So it was 2 security for an event that is from 25 to 75 attendees. And then events expecting over 75 attendees would require additional security. Do you want to say per? Okay.
Is everybody else good with that? And don't change it quite yet, Christina, make sure we're all alike. So Christina has for the first 75, 2 people, and then at least 2 per 75 greater than that.
So you're saying at least, because I think the chief had said that the chief said that that's not necessarily the case. There could be a 150 person event that needs more than 4. So I thought that we were gonna leave that to them to
be
decide.
determined between the place and the OLCC.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I don't see how it's gonna be determined when the event pops up. They're gonna call you at that night, say, hey, we're gonna have a big party here. How many people you want? I think that there should be some sort of ratio. So that way it makes it easier for your folks. If you're not able to work that closely with them or even have the time to, then it's going to leave that as a opening to where then becomes.
How about we put the number on it? But then if the owners come make a case why they think they don't need that many, I'm open to hearing your case, and depending on the circumstances of that event, maybe we can draw it back. So we're good.
So maintaining the requirement of 6 security guards unless agreed to by Springfield Police Department, or 2 per 75 unless agreed to by Springfield Police Department.
Automatically have to have 6.
Okay.
But I think that if there's 2 per 75, which brings, if they're up to their capacity, that's 6 officers. And then if they have an event that's gonna be, they're gonna make a case saying it's gonna be super mellow, we only gonna have 2 guys here, 4 gal or security folks here. And you folks look at that and say, yeah, that's fine. That's my intent.
I think that's where I'm hearing the head nods is it's 2 per 75 and right, they can come talk to the chief.
Or his designee.
Yeah.
Okay. So additional licensed event security of at least 2 per 75 attendees or as determined otherwise upon consultation between OLCC and Springfield Police Department.
Yes.
Thank you for your patience in working through this. Thank
you.
Sorry for being such a.
My normal role is to work with the planning commission and they get into the weeds on findings. So this is fine with me.
Thank you.
Now you gotta put that into a motion.
Yes. I'd like to approve a motion. I'd like to make a motion as stated by her. As stated. How do you want this?
If you could move to adopt the staff recommendation with the change previously discussed, I think that would be.
I'd like to make a motion with the staff recommendation as liquor license for the spot as recommended in our latest rendition.
All right. That's gonna be close enough. All right, there's a second. Neil, could you call the vote, please?
Yes, Counselor Weber,
Yes.
Counselor Mo.
Yes.
Counselor Rodley,
Yes.
Counselor Blackwell,
Yes.
Counselor Doyle.
Aye.
And Counselor Pictionary.
Yes, thank you.
Motion passes, 6 yeses, 0 nos. Next item, please.
Next item is business from the audience.
So I know we got a lot of folks in here before I call the first person up. If your item's already passed, it would be perfectly willing and able, if you want to step out. You can stay and join us too, but we still got a lot of business here. All right. First person up, state your name for the record, and then you'll have 3 minutes. Is Wendell Butler.
Good afternoon, good evening. Mayor and City Manager. My name is Wendell Butler. I'm here to,
What part of the city are you from?
I live in Springfield.
Okay.
Springfield, yeah, I live in Springfield. I'm a property manager, manage my own property management company, it's G Butler Enterprise. I have cards for everybody, if you'd like to have one before I leave. The clock is ticking, but it's not gonna take me 3 minutes. Okay, I'm here to get your financial support to express a goal in two folds. It's a state-driven state-driven where they want to address the homeless and the affordable housing, which I'm well familiar with. And that's one of my goals also, because I'm actually a property manager of 11 units that I own. I work 2 jobs. 45 years, and I acquired property here. I've been here for almost 30 years. I know that low income and housing is a top priority for the city and as well as the state. I am a private owner, as I stated earlier. I've been catering to for 19 years. All the organizations that's here, Catholic Community Services, Shelter Care, Section 8, St. Vincent de Paul, which they house. They send referrals to meet veterans and refugees. And I'm grassroots and also looking glass. I want to increase the affordable housing just as well as you do, because it is a serious problem, right? It's like I said, it's a state and a world problem. Actually, it's a United States problem with the homeless. And I'm here to offer my expertise. It's something I've been doing for 35 years. I'm really good at it, and I'm not top heavy. And I hold myself accountable for everything that's done. And can't nobody beat my prices as a private owner. Other than that, I appreciate it. I look forward to working with it as a partner. Working with the city of Springfield in order to advance my inventory that would aid and assist you in the process of accommodating the homeless and the low-income housing. So, can I give everybody a card? I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next person is Teresa Court.
Hi, Mayor. Counselors, staff, thank you all for being here. I know this is a lot of work to put this on and have it happen.
Sorry, can you state your name?
I am Teresa Coford. I live in Eugene, Oregon. I have lived in Oregon my whole life. I grew up in Albany, a city quite like Springfield. And in a lot of ways, I feel a lot of affinity for Springfield. I have been the Egan site lead for the last 4 to 5 years. Before that, I was a volunteer for Egan in Springfield I'm thinking probably 8 years ago. They all kind of blend together after a while, but when it was still in Ebert's basement. And I remember June talking to me about her vision for a shelter for women that was designed around what Springfield needed. I find that the women I meet, the women are less mobile. They may have families still in town. They may have relationships that are still in town, but cannot be residential relationships for them. Sometimes they have kids, sometimes they have other family members on the street. In general, women getting off the street in Springfield, it is a lot harder for them because they do have these connections. I joined the board of Ann's Heart to take it to the next level. I do have quite a bit of experience, as I said, with Egan. I also was a pivotal member of the team that ran the respite center that was in the Memorial Building during the early days of COVID. And I worked for Carry It Forward for about 1.5 years in an administrative capacity. I did a number of different projects for them. I was also their HMIS administrator. I worked with the county to make sure that our data reporting was correct, and had quite extensive contact with those folks. We have been doing big girl things. We might be an all-women board, but we have added a treasurer. Our previous treasurer was an artist. Our new treasurer is a insurance professional. We have a mental health professional. We have June in her capacity as a previous pastor and with lots of experience of her own. This last year at Egan, she is the only one that I would let replace me if I needed to take a night off. She has amazing skills, drive, and energy. I was a little bit disappointed that we had not had a lot of contact with the city since we submitted things. You had asked for some things first week of July. We submitted them by the third week of July and then had heard nothing. And I asked June again and again, and she said, oh, we've submitted everything. We should hear from them soon. We've submitted everything. We should hear from them soon. I'm really hopeful that we can still get to a yes on Ann's Heart being a shelter in the city of Eugene. I hope you consider working with us, either through a proposal process, when you take this out to look for other organizations, or in another capacity. Thank you so very much for your time and energy.
Thank you. Nancy Forrest.
My name is Nancy Forrest. I live up River Road, unincorporated River Road. I work for Carry It Forward, and over the 4 years I've worked for them, I've met a lot of women from Springfield, some of whom are no longer with us. They live in Springfield. They were born and raised here. They had family members here, and they were unable to leave here for many reasons. And so that's the sad point. But in the last year, I have in my current caseload, they are both in my medically fragile camp in Eugene. They were both living in Thurston until last November. Both of them are over, well, one of them is probably in her 60s, the other one's over 70. Both of them had been long-term tenants in Thurston. And they got, for different reasons, notices. These are not women that are using substances or any of those things. They do have disabilities. But being older, not knowing how much apartments cost anymore, they just walked away when they were told, hey, you can't be here anymore. We're gonna have to call the police. And so one lived in her car and one slept in the alcove at Banner Bank for about 9 months. She would go to, well, right outside this building all day, especially during the hot of the summer. And I was finally tasked with going out and finding her, locating her, finding out if she was a good fit for our shelter. She would be, both of these women would be perfect recipients of a place at Ann's Heart's project. They really do understand what's needed. It's really about giving people space, and you'd be surprised how many times people turn it around within a year. What they need is a place to be settled, safe, secure, some people that appreciate meeting them and working with them every day. And the two women I just brought up, both of them have income. One of them has a voucher. I mean, it's not that simple to put that all together when you're by yourself and you have no one to pick up the phone and say, hey, could you help me figure out why my landlord didn't process when I rescinded my notice to leave? I gave notice, then I came back and rescinded it, and they said they don't have the paperwork and I have to leave. But she didn't have anybody to pick up the phone and call. because she'd been housed for 10 years. I wasn't thinking this was gonna happen to her. And so those are the people, those kinds of women, they're already here. And some of them have passed away because there wasn't a place for them to be and to go. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Chris McAllister.
Members of the council, staff, my name is Chris McAllister. I live off of 12th Street, Ward 3. I am very much involved with the unhoused situations and regional plans of the city of Springfield, as well as the Eugene and Greater Lane County. I currently help supervise the car camping program within our city borders. We, just like Ann's Heart, were named in the ordinance recently about what Springfield does to help the unhoused. And so we know that there are a lot of extra ties, red tape, bureaucratic situations. And we do feel like some of the information on the situation has been tied up into that. Springfield hasn't been attending a lot of the regional planning items. And so some of the definitions that were mentioned in the report have been updated since August. And so low barrier, no barrier, what the county will and will not expect has been changed formally. And not only has been changed formally, but it's also been on public record. So I'd love to encourage, I'll sit down with staff as we've offered before. There's been a very hard time to get answers back this summer. And so we who have been part of the process, who've asked where is Springfield, what is the next steps? How do we contribute for our population? We have over 455 people recognized as Springfielders who are born in Springfield, who go to school or went to school in Springfield, who worked in Springfield, who helped build this up. And so we're not asking for people to follow the county's way. We're not asking you to open up camps here. We're not asking you to be Eugene. We're asking you to find a place for Springfield women. And so if taking county money, which we have all fought against, because we believe that Springfield needs to take care of its own people, if taking county money is what's holding us back, let's go back to what worked. Let's go back to what was last on the table, because we were told to go to the county money because this is not Springfield's purview. So if it's not Springfield's purview and the county rules are too strict, where do we go? These are Springfield folks. These are Springfield hopes. We aren't taxing. We are not asking you to do anything more than work within the process that has been in place for the last 5 years. I've had the honor to serve with the mayor and several folks, Councilor Rodley, on some of these issues in the field. I had the honor to have Councilor Starr, before he resigned, come and be a part of Egan to see what Springfield looks like when it's cold and there are no options. To see these very women, such as what Nancy spoke about, in the shelter in the moment. I invite every one of you to come do Egan training, to see your people. We've had police from other communities, we have counselors from other communities. We've had senators come and do duty with us. We'd love to see you. We'd love to see you on the streets, understanding your people. And we'd love to see more communication, whether it's from this body, whether it's from the community subcommittees, or whether it's from one-on-ones. We serve you at your pleasure to serve the camps, to serve the outreach, and to serve the Greater Lane County. We've been with you since day one, and we will be with you till the end. And hopefully nobody in this room will ever experience what some of these women have gone through. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your service.
Thank you. Janet Striano.
Janet, I live in Eugene, and I'm the secretary at Ann's Heart on the board, but I came just to tell a little personal story and maybe put a face to the kinds of things we're talking about tonight. On May 10th of 2009, I was living on the streets, and I had been on the streets for about 10 years. And on May 11th, 2009, I went into free supportive housing in Eugene, where I live. And after 1 year there, I was able to hold down a job and pay rent. And I've been paying rent every month, and it's been over 14 years. If I was to tell you the value of having free housing at that time in my life and support, I couldn't overstate the value. And it's given me a chance to give back to the community too, and pay taxes. You know, I made poor choices. You know, maybe I did drugs. I did, you know, and maybe I didn't deserve help, but I needed help. And I'm so grateful that it was there when I asked.
When I asked for help, that's when I said, I'm ready to do it. You may say, well, why didn't you go into rehab? You're on drugs, but it's not the path for everybody. And drugs was just one part of my story. Once I had the stable housing, I was able to voluntarily stay clean, attending 12-step meetings. The counseling and that 1 year of housing gave me a foundation that I built this life that I have now on. So I appreciate your consideration and your concern for people who have been homeless and who are trying to make the kind of change I was able to make. Thanks.
Thank you. Arwen?
Hello. My name's Arwen Moss Despain. I live in Eugene. I work in Springfield. I'm here, I wanted to make 3 main points, and some of it's already been said, so I'm gonna echo some of the same sentiments that you've heard already. One is that I support Ann's Heart full-heartedly. They are not operating in a vacuum. They are part of a coalition of organizations that work here in Springfield with the unhoused. And so any endeavor that they are putting forth is going to be supported by the rest of us. And we have been supported by Ann's Heart for women in our shelter, in our emergency sheltering. And we also support them in their efforts. As you've heard, there are women who are in our emergency shelter who would greatly benefit from a house to be in. And I want to emphasize the importance of a house over a motel or a shelter environment. There's something about the stability and the humanizing effect of being in a home. And for some people, that is a much better fit than being in a congregate shelter situation. And I just really want to emphasize the importance of that stability that provides, and that we would work in partnership with them on that project. After listening to your work session, I was surprised at that sort of about face is what it felt like in terms of the support for this project. And I kind of found myself just scratching my head at what is it that you will support. Your community needs are far surpassing what you have been putting out in terms of support for Springfield unhoused. And so I'm just really want to put to you, what will you support? And I would love to hear that if not this, that there would be RFPs or RFQPs that could come out that would accommodate an addendum or a revised version of Ann's Heart project, because their project, there is such a need. And for women, particularly coming off the streets, there are unique needs. And their project, as it has been crafted over these years of work, really meets those needs. And so I appreciate your consideration, and I'm hoping that we can still come to yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Good job.
Hello, Mayor, Council. I'm Jessica Dubb. I am both a Springfield resident, Ward 1, and also a board member of Ann's Heart as well. And I just wanted to say that we're still moving. I mean, we're still excited about where the women that we're supporting and what we are. Our passion for the women. My neighbors. People like my brother who has mental health issues. Women who I know my brother were there for. And if we weren't there when they opened the doors and let him out on the street in the hospital, would be on the street when I have firsthand experience of how people are put into the system, and then they tell them, let's say they get put in the hospital, they get put in jail for whatever mental health reasons. In my brother's case, it doesn't involve drugs. And the moment that time is up, there's the door. And here's 2 weeks, a bag of 2 weeks of your medication. and, call a taxi. He has no ID, no money, and he's somehow supposed to know how to get back onto health insurance, how to get some sort of assistance, how to get to even the Eugene mission. We were given, while we now have guardianship for him. My parents do. We were given less than 24-hour notice the last time he was released from the hospital. And then we were told he was going to a secure residential facility. They said, oh, no, I'm sorry, he's coming in tomorrow at 10. While the guardianship person was in our house talking with us, she gets a call too, he's gonna be released tomorrow. And within a half an hour, he was out the door. We had to rush down to the jail to pick him up because they transported him from the hospital. This is what you cannot not have place for people to go. You just cycle over and over. I'm sorry, this is really personal because my brother has just now been able to move to a secure residential facility. And he's been on a wait list for a long time and he finally was able to move. But he has a whole family to support him, who won't give up on him no matter what. And it's been over 20 years. I want you to know that as a board, we are willing to consider walking away from all in. We were told to go find more funding for everything else. We found it, but we were willing to walk away and consider walking away from that. Love the work.
You're at 20 minutes. I have one more card left, plus whoever is online. So normally at this point, I'm looking for to council if they want to continue.
Yeah.
I don't know that we have any hands up. I'm trying to find one first. Okay,
I don't know how many are on.
yeah, Ben.
My name is Ben Wilkinson. Do you mind if I stand?
No, why don't you take a seat?
Okay.
Everybody's taking a seat.
All right, we'll go. I live in Ward 4. I'm very happy to finally be a Springfield resident from 2020. I want to say every time I come to one of these things, it's just so special to see a cause that people believe in. And I'm here to celebrate Springfield today, but it's a good reminder to know that there are options and opportunities and challenges that we face. So I am here to talk to you about Springfield Block Party. I'd like to say it was a wild success. With more citizens, more businesses, more bounce houses, more beverages sold than ever. September 8th was a magical night in downtown Springfield on Main Street in coordination with Herencia Hispania's Noche Cultural event, and at the same time as the Second Friday Art Walk and A3's mural dedication. It was pretty cool to see everything from Swallowtail all the way up to the spot. Activated 8 blocks of downtown Springfield coming together as a community. We estimate 8,000 to 10,000 citizens in attendance. Of course, I didn't have my clicker with me, but that's just my best guess. Maybe some people with crowd experience can help me with that. But we exceeded our expectations and our planning for this event by double. It's an exponential growth trajectory. I hope it does slow down a little, but we've gone up anyway. That's all in the infographic. I specifically would like to thank Nancy Jenkins and DPW for just going out of her way to make sure that I knew which hoops to climb over and go around and through and above. Her team, specifically Robin Holman, for tolerating the applications, Michael Liebler in his traffic control, and then from the CMO office, Bahana Horn, the CMO, the city council, specifically operations team for the party as well that helped literally make it happen, including the police department support for this event, as well as Eugene Springfield Fire. Again, all of these things are necessary to have a celebration like ours. Of course, the party is not without expense, but you know what? We pulled it off, and it was cool to see Springfield come together, whether hell or high water, to make it happen. What's next for the party? The answer is yes. And if you're a fan of my yard signs, you'll know I like to ask questions. Whatever organizations, businesses, civic partners, arts and culture that would like to join the party are welcome. And I think that that's what makes the Purple Block Party so unique. What is it? It's Springfield coming together in a way that we haven't necessarily seen in a while. The demand is apparent. The benefit is both economically astounding and invaluable to the community. We're one of the many events bringing Springfield back together. as residents of Lane County increasingly choose it as their home, their workplace, and their preferred downtown in which to celebrate. So thank you all very much for the party. I had a really great time. If you weren't able to make it, I'm sure it'll happen again. I'll try to figure out how. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Right. That was my last card. Neil, do we have anybody in the queue?
No hands up.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to come up and speak for 3 minutes, please.
Can we maybe take it by email since we've gone kind of over our time limit?
I wish that you guys would give me the opportunity to speak for the safety of my community.
So can we get with you after and then we'll get you the right information?
Okay.
All right, like hang out. So we'll get somebody to help you. All right, next item, please.
Next item is any council response?
Is there any council response? Corey?
Hello. I want to thank everyone for coming down here to share their comments. And I want to provide a little context. And I think that, and I feel like I can say this confidently, that everyone on this council cares deeply about the unhoused and the homeless people in our community and is willing to try to figure out solutions that are within the purview of what we can do as a city. And I think that in the world of nonprofit or non-governmental services, things still have to function. And I think that that's part of what we're trying to get to the how to do it in a way that sets this up for success. And I also care very deeply about this. It started my career in nonprofit working with women who are coming out of the prison system and trying to retain custody of their children. So it's like this is something that I think many of us understand, and we're just trying to get to the how of it to set this up for success in Springfield in a way that functions. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with having gone for the all-in funding to get things off the ground and to start providing services and to figure out what it looks like. I think there are lots of ways to get there, and I'm taking some liberties here to speak for my colleagues. I don't think that anybody here has changed heart or doesn't care. I think it's just we're trying to get to the how to make something like this happen in Springfield. Thank you.
Thank you, Corey. Anybody else? I guess the one comment I would make, and I don't think anybody's saying that this isn't a significant issue that our community faces. And I also want to point out that for a long time, Ann's Hearts appeared in our documentation and, in projects that, this council's put forward and in the conversation, which gives an indication about the support that it has. I think the pivot that I would like people to see is please read the memo, right? Like, I think this is a question about how, and the memo outlines serious issues in the operating plan that are the real issues. And it's not just all outside of the all-in funding, which, there's several big items in there that I would encourage you guys to read as it does not sound like this is going away. That as you iterate and look to improve and get started, because I think it's got good advice and got good guidance on what some of the gaps are. All right, next item, please.
Mayor, the next item is correspondence and petitions. Item number 1, a drafted letter to the Lane County Commissioners that supports relocating Lane County's Glenwood Transfer Station.
All right. I promised that I would get you to Mary Bridget to talk a little bit through this process. It's not one that we do every day. I don't know, Steve, did you have something first?
I just wanted to say I have a potential conflict of interest, but now that I've said that.
Okay.
So just as a way of a reminder, this is a letter on behalf of the whole council. So it's addressed in your operating policies. And what it requires is the vote, as a motion and a vote, and if it's unanimously agreed to, then the mayor signs the letter on behalf of the entire council. If it's not unanimously agreed to, then the vote is actually reflected on the letter and it can still be sent depending on if the council still wants to do that. And Councilor Mo has just declared a potential conflict of interest. He could still participate in the matter. He just is declaring it under Oregon ethics laws. And if anyone has any other questions, but I know it's not something that you guys do often, so we just want to get the rules out there quickly.
Okay, does anybody have questions about this letter? All right.
I would like to make a motion, excuse me, to provide staff direction to submit. I'd like to make a motion to direct staff to submit the fully executive letter to Maine County Commission.
Execute.
Execute. Oh, did I say execute?
You said executive. I think there's a typo in the.
It is, I say executive. I'm like, didn't make sense, but I'll say it anyway.
You got a second from Corey.
Okay. Neil, can you hold vote?
Yes, Counselor Weber,
Yes.
Counselor Mo. Yeah. Counselor Rodley,
Yes.
Counselor Blackwell,
Yes.
Counselor Doyle,
Hi.
and Counselor Pictionary.
Yes, thank you.
Motion passes, 6 yeses, 0 no's. Next item, please.
Next item is any business from the city council.
That was a cool block party.
Very cool
Very
block
cool
party,
block party.
yeah.
Just saying.
All right, it sounds like the consensus of the council was it was a cool block party. Next item, please.
Business from the city manager. Item number 1, ratification of a contract with Springfield Police Association or SPA. Shane Hertz is here for this item.
Good morning, Mayor and Council.
Morning.
Or good morning. I've been here a long time today. Sorry, good evening, Mayor and Council. That's a rough start for me already. So I am here seeking a motion and a vote to ratify a contract with the Springfield Police Association. That vote would authorize the city manager to execute a successor agreement. It's a 3-year agreement. The details of the agreement are outlined in the packet. And includes an attachment of the red draft. The economic matters fall within the guidelines that was given to us by council, as well as the non-economic items as well. So any questions?
Are there any questions? I just have to say thank you for your significant work on this.
Would like to make a motion to authorize the city manager to ratify collective bargaining agreement with SPA.
Second.
Vote, please.
Yes, Counselor Weber,
Yes.
Counselor Mo.
Yes.
Counselor Bradley,
Yes.
Counselor Blackwell,
Yes.
Counselor Doyle,
Hi.
and Counselor Pictionary.
Yes, thank you.
Motion passes, 6 yeses, 0 no's. Next item, please.
Any other business?
No further business. Thank you.
Business from the city attorney. Item number 1 is a pro tem judge employment agreement, and Nathan Bell is here for the staff item.
This one, there's no fixed seat, so this one feels closer.
There's no assigned seating.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So the item I have here tonight is a request for a motion to ratify the mayor's signature on the employment agreement with Ashley Weiss for the position of municipal court pro-tem judge. Over your summer recess, the presiding judge was having some challenges with pro-tem availability for covering planned time off from the bench. He reached out to a qualified peer who was available. Due to that planned time off starting prior to you returning, staff asked for the mayor to sign the contract with the expectation that we bring it back in front of you when you returned for formal ratification. I'd just like to mention that this is a limited duration contract. It expires at the end of this calendar year. Any questions?
No, I think we are good.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to ratify the mayor's signature on the employment agreement with Ashley Weiss for the position of municipal court judge pro tem.
Second.
All right, Neil, could you call the vote, please?
Yes, Counselor Weber,
Yes.
Counselor Mo.
Yes.
Counselor Rodley,
Yes.
Counselor Blackwell,
Yes.
Counselor Doyle,
Hi.
and Counselor Pictionary.
Yes, thank you.
Motion passes, 6 yeses, 0 no's. Next item.
Any other business from the city attorney?
No other business.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. I didn't understand what he was saying.